to episode 15.
Come on. 15, really?
Yes. That's 15 more than when we started.
Impressive.
Up the Waterfall podcast with your hosts, Zanna and Scott Otis.
Hello.
Where we are taking a journey up the waterfall, if you will, of Disney parks, history, remembrances, nostalgia, and whatnot.
Fondness as well.
Yes.
And yes, I will.
This week, we are doing part 2 of...
Of 2.
Of 2, yes. We're not going to stretch it into 5 like we did the Epcot episodes, of our most missed things and just, you know, what used to be there.
Yeah,
But that's
remembrances
not as fun a
of the old Disney MGM Studios
Correct.
theme park.
So if you haven't watched or listened to episode 14, we recommend you start there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter because we're just kind of jumping around anyway.
We
do
really
not
are. We're just hopping around the park. It's a pretty small park
Yes.
area-wise, so that we can hop around pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we jump in, I just wanted to make a couple of notes
Oh, yes.
from last week's episode. We were talking about the Soundstage restaurant.
Yes.
And I had totally forgotten about it until you said that. And we talked about how that was where I had my first alcoholic beverage on
Up
Walt
in
Disney
the
World
Catwalk
property.
Bar, yeah.
The Catwalk Bar. And then you were mentioning how after it was the Soundstage Studio, it was Soundstage Restaurant, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It was themed to Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, I guess, right?
I mentioned Big Business,
Yeah,
Beauty and
was
the
when it
Beast,
started.
and Aladdin. Yeah, that's how it all
Apparently, excuse me, sorry. Apparently, it had other themes over the years. It's just like
Yeah, I knew it
sets,
had
which
other
was
themes.
not
I just
really
don't remember
sets
them all.
because they were animated features for the most part, so they didn't really. But I think based on the Aladdin one, it was probably they were pulling things from like the parades and stuff, perhaps. I don't know. But there was Pocahontas and Hunchback of Notre
Yes.
Dame, and then Hercules and Mulan. So
Yeah,
I don't
right
really
around
have.
that.
I think I stopped going there after the Aladdin part because I don't
I
remember.
was going to say, those are all the animated films of the late 90s.
Yeah, and that's what they had, either a show or a parade themed after those
They did,
titles
yes.
as well back then. So I just wanted to, make sure we got all of that info in there.
Yes, because the Soundstage Restaurant was not just those
Yeah.
first 3 things that we mentioned.
So if
It
you
had-
remember those,
they changed it a lot over the years.
let us know. Send in a photo.
Oh, yes,
if you have.
please. Because I don't, I went, but I didn't always go into that restaurant, so I don't remember all of, of those themes.
Additionally, we had touched on what happened after the walking tour, the backstage tour ended.
Yes.
And there was various like movie set walkthrough kind of things, and they had the Narnia one. Remember we talked about that?
Well, yes. I think that's a little bit different. That's not. I don't think that was part of the walking tour. That was a thing that was just adjacent to it.
Right, but I'm saying
Oh,
that
yes.
the walking tour was no more.
Right.
And so those buildings
yes.
that used to have stuff in them now had like
Yes.
the Narnia
The Narnia.
situation walkthrough. After the Narnia one, there was the Legend of Captain Jack Sparrow.
That's right.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
I had forgotten about it until I was making sure I didn't miss anything.
And
I
a lot
did
of
miss
it had that. It had a pretty cool Captain Jack experience.
I think that
And
was
then-
really them testing projection
Yes.
technology and how they could use that in future attractions and things like that, because
That's right.
it was you were walking in and it felt like you were on a ship sort of as far as the set goes, and then up would appear in a crow's nest or something, I don't remember.
Yeah, up on top of a rock or something.
Yeah,
It was
like
kind
a
of a weird
projection
thing.
of Captain Jack Sparrow.
And it seemed very real.
Yeah, so it was very cool, and I don't think they did anything directly in studios with that technology, but I'm sure they've used it elsewhere since.
Yeah, I'm
then.
not sure. I don't remember
Certainly
anything.
it exists over.
But
down the
yes, a
street.
lot of times they've definitely used kind of that kind of thing to test for the future.
Yeah, and that's always fun because sometimes you'll see what it turns into, and other times you'll never hear from it again.
That's right. Interesting.
While we're over in that general backlot area, I thought we could talk about the Premier Theater
Oh, yes.
I know that was on your list from last week.
It
That was one of the things that I realized we needed a part 2 for, because I'd forgotten to put that in my notes.
The theater itself had evolved over the years, as well as the content within.
Yes.
It had a lot going on there, and it did not used to be a air-conditioned, closed theater.
It's funny how Disney over the years always starts out with an outdoor theater for the most part in some places,
and
then
they need to start by realizing, hey, we're in Florida.
Yeah,
it's hot.
It's hot and it rains.
It rains all the time. Yeah, it's sunny and it's hot.
The
wet.
Theater of the Stars, where Beauty and the Beast is that's still outdoors, right?
It is outdoors, but covered.
Oh, it is covered finally?
No, it's always been covered. In fact, it's been covered
I'm thinking
from
of
both
the
of their locations.
Original. Really? No.
Yep.
I remember sitting in the heat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think, the original one, yes. It started and then they covered it, and then they moved it.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll do Premiere Theater first, which I think was always covered, but it was not always enclosed.
Right, because they did have some special effects and things at the shows that they had, which the first one was Pocahontas.
That's right.
It may have a longer official name. I suppose I should
probably it did, but I don't recall that. But it was basically a retelling of the movie, with kind of like in the form of a stage theater.
The Spirit of Pocahontas.
Yes, not to be confused with the one that would appear later at Animal Kingdom.
Correct, which had animals in it.
That's right.
I remember there being skunks involved in that one. And that ran from June 23rd, 95 to February 24th, 1996. So not even a full year.
Yeah, and the movie was released in 95. So, in fact, that was the main impetus for the Phantasmic that would show that would appear later. That was right when Pocahontas was released. There's a lot of Pocahontas in the Florida version of Phantasmic, and so it was because The Little Mermaid had evolved into Beauty and the Beast, had evolved into Aladdin, had evolved into The Lion King, and each movie had progressively gotten more successful. And so they thought, oh my gosh, Pocahontas is even going to do better than The Lion King did. So we need to make sure that we have tons of Pocahontas. And that was right when they were developing the Florida version of Phantasmic. And it did well, but it did not do nearly as well as The Lion King, not even as well as Aladdin. So,
I don't know why. I mean...
it was a great film.
Maybe Mel Gibson, but... I really like the music of Pocahontas.
Oh, yes. It's absolutely wonderful. Good. But anyway, so I kind of got sidetracked from...
So that show was like you said, a retelling, and I always enjoyed it. And at the end, there was a lot of wind during the Colors of the Wind
because that
song.
was the thing. They kind of blew her hair, and then all of the leaves started falling onto the.
And at the end, instead
audience.
of like confetti, which Disney does a lot now, or those little streamers, they threw out leaves that were like little fabric leaves, and they were really fun. And that's why I liked going there, because I liked.
I get a collection of leaves somewhere.
I'm sure I have some somewhere, or maybe at my mom's house. So after that, in June 21st of 96 through September 28th of 2002, it was The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yes, and this to me was like the best one, and as you could tell by how long it lasted.
Long time.
That was a fantastic show.
I think personally that The Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of the most underrated animated features.
And it was it was a very dark film as well. It wasn't as
which people are saying about Frozen 2 now too. I know you
it wasn't as family friendly, if you will, as they did throw
there were some themes.
Yes, there were a lot of dark, edgy adult themes in that film. They did throw in the gargoyles as like a comedy element, but there with things like lust and that was the revamped version. Like originally, it was much worse. Judge Claude Frollo was a really dark dude.
Yeah, and certainly, I think that lends itself better to a musical, and it's been a musical over in Germany and
overseas,
a few other places. I wish it would.
It has
have a
traveled in the United States, but it has not been on Broadway per se.
Yeah, but I don't know. People probably wouldn't even remember it now. Mainstream people.
Der Glockenspiel or something like that in the title. It was quite amazing.
But the show itself was also really well done. They used a lot of puppets which was always fun.
The little puppets at the beginning, like not just the one that Clopan had with his little alter ego, but
I like a show that doesn't try to do too many set pieces to make it look realistic. Like in this one, I just rewatched it, so I remembered things. A lot of the like they make makeshift stages within the stage when they're using the puppets and stuff like that, and it's just people with capes turned around backwards, and I like that kind of stuff.
Even just the little puppetry that they had was very realistic looking enough, and it had movement like in the limbs and things like that. There was just really a cool interpretation, and basically it was able to tell a lot of the beginning parts of the story pretty quickly. And that they had changed the theater a little bit to make a little catwalk come out into the audience, so that when they did some of the numbers like Festival of Fools and that sort of thing, they could come out into the audience, so that was always fun. And they had that giant bell. And even just all of the kind of like the inner workings of the kind of like where the bell ringer, the hunchback would go. There was all kinds of like woodwork and kind of catwalks and things that they were able to kind of meander through as a way to kind of tell the story, but in different places throughout the stage.
And Frollo had a horse too, which was
fun.
Right. Good times. Definitely the precursor to a lot of the Broadway style shows that are on the cruise line. I think they do a lot of that. And of course, The Lion King on Broadway really changed a lot of how they do things with puppets and things like that.
But I would even say it's also a precursor to what they did at the California Adventure Theater, where they had the Aladdin show, as well as Frozen. Now,
and those, from what I've seen of the ones in California and on the ships, they're very similarly set designed. And
I would even compare it also to the Beauty and the Beast show that is at the studios here. I mean, I think this was far and away above that. In quality.
But, I agree. I'm not a huge fan of the Beauty and the Beast live. Sorry.
No, I completely agree. We'll get to that because we're going to the theater and stars later.
So Premiere Theater after that in 2002, it was really not used again until 2008 when Star Wars Weekends.
Yes, it was during that time that it was enclosed.
Yes, and air conditioned and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
And I mean, we can touch quickly on Star Wars Weekends, which
we're going to get into the weekends as well, but that the stuff that they did for Star Wars Weekend in that venue was top notch. They were able to use it as kind of like shows where they would have a lot of the cast from Star Wars,
voice actors and live action.
Things like Ray Park doing his Darth Maul stuff.
I think that's the one thing that's missing from, Galaxy's Edge is a whole thing and it's very immersive and whatnot. But I think that's what's like why Hollywood Studios is kind of in flux, because it's that backstage behind the scenes stuff versus trying to immerse you in your own story.
Because I would say my favorite part of what happened for the Star Wars stuff is like all of the stormtrooper kind of the gimmickry.
Well, that's
but I mean, you can't really do that as funny in Galaxy's Edge, because that is supposed to be an actual place. But a lot of that was done in comedy form there at it was kind of like pre-shows where they had like 4 different stormtroopers and just kind of their little banter that they would do back and forth, and a lot of it was kind of silly.
And I think they obviously knew that Galaxy's Edge was coming, and there was a lot of planning involved. So I think when Star Wars Weekend stopped, they kind of switched over to the little parade of marching forces that would come through, and that was very serious. Like, they did not fool around. Captain Phasma was there, and these were
when you
her
have the
troops
501st what is that called?
Just the 501st Division. I
think. They take that stuff very seriously.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they were involved with the fooling around guys too, but I think they were just trying to make the change over to, hey, this is going to be realistic and serious stuff now. We're not going to be goofing around with
Well, if I can touch upon it and go more into the Star Wars Weekends part, if you remember, was it Snig and Oopla's hyperspace hoopla?
Yeah.
That was a whole other thing.
It was.
I absolutely found this to be hilarious. This was the show that ended each day of Star Wars Weekends, and it was essentially like a dance-off between the Rebel forces versus the Empire, and kind of with a lot of the crazy characters, but essentially doing dance-offs with modern music. And a lot of people said, "Oh, George Lucas must be rolling in his grave," even though he wasn't dead, and still isn't. But things like that. Like,
I'm honestly surprised it took him as long as he did to say, "No, this needs to not happen."
Yeah,
anymore.
because it definitely went against the whole Star Wars.
I wasn't
theme.
a huge fan.
You weren't a huge fan, but I found it hilarious. I mean, if you could separate.
I guess I'm more of a stickler for
Yeah,
those kind of
that's the
things. Like,
thing.
that's why I didn't like
I was able to
Jingle Cruise when it first came out, because I was like, they're messing with the original jokes, and
that's
like
the
this
thing.
was messing
Yeah.
with character integrity.
I was able to separate my love for Star Wars with this completely separate show. And yes, I did think it was completely inappropriate to the whole Star Wars thing, but I found it hilarious.
Well, it is no more. So
Yes,
you
and
can find that on
that's
YouTube.
the thing. A lot of people, it ended, and they had no replacement for the Star Wars
Well,
Weekends
they
because they knew that there was going to be
Star Wars
a
Weekend.
giant Star Wars
Right.
presence,
I think
which they have now.
they still have the stage in front of the Great Movie Ride right now. Right?
They
They're
do,
doing
yes.
like the
There's-
Boba Fett comes out, and
it's
They
just-
actually bring it out and put it away every day.
yeah,
Yes,
that's
it's
so crazy to me.
The amount of Star Wars that's in the parks now. I mean, in addition to just Batuu and all of that, and Star Tours, is still absolutely crazy.
I think they're just covering all their bases. If you don't want to go over to Galaxy's Edge, but you still want to see Boba Fett or a
'cause
stormtrooper,
they have
here
that.
they are.
They have the whole launch pad
Oh
area.
yeah, that's right. For
the
meet
thing
and
right in
greets.
the middle. They have
It
the
is very
path of the
spread out.
Jedi.
It's very
There's
odd.
so much, but I guess I was thinking that a lot of those things were like temporary things just to get people ready for Star Wars Land or
I
Batuu,
think,
and so that maybe those are short-lived.
I think
perhaps.
Launch Bay would be a good way to have the behind-the-scenes kind of stuff that Star Wars
Okay.
Weekends used to have, and whether it's like pre-recorded behind-the-scenes thing, like Warwick Davis has his whole presentation that he
Yes,
did
he does.
every year was great, and James Arnold Taylor, and of course Ashley Eckstein, who's always hanging out in Galaxy's Edge these
That's
days
right.
because of
Ahsoka Tano.
Tano and her universe and all
she's
that
local
fun stuff.
as well, so she lives nearby.
She's
that
a very, very nice lady.
Yes, she is. She's a friend.
But anyway, yeah, so Star Wars Weekends are no more, but there's no shortage of Star Wars.
Not at all. In fact, just a couple of days ago, they opened up a new attraction, and
Yes.
we'll probably get into that later because we're not talking about. Right now, we're talking about reminiscences
Things
of
we
the,
miss,
of
which
the past.
we don't
but-
miss it because it's just opened.
Ooh.
So yeah, that was the premiere theater.
Yeah, we with another sidetrack.
Yeah.
I do
And
that
after Star Wars Weekends ended, for just about a year in 2014 to 2015, they did the Frozen sing-along there.
Oh, that's right.
Before they moved it to the Hyperion Theater because American Idol closed
Experience. Or was it American Idol? American
down.
Idol Experience.
Yeah. I was never a huge fan of that either. Sorry, I'm probably going to get hate
What
mail.
you talking about?
I mean,
Shud?
see, I actually never watched the TV show. So I thought, oh, there's no way I'm going to like this show. But then I went to it, and it was actually very compelling. I thought, I don't think it was the greatest show. I don't really miss it. I'm okay with it being on. Although, I don't know if it would be better or worse than what is there now, the Frozen sing-along. I don't know.
Well, we have a friend in the Frozen sing-along,
do.
actually a couple of them, so it's great. Yeah, I think I went to the Frozen sing-along when it was in the premiere theater one time, and I was like, yikes. Because that's just not, maybe if I had a tiny person that was super into Frozen, but Gio never really was super into it and was getting older by the minute.
Still is.
So I kind of got overloaded with the Frozen merchandising machine that Disney was throwing at us.
I mean, we
and was
loved
like,
the
no
movie when it
sit
first came out and loved the music, and then it very quickly got thrown into our face way too much.
But I think the one that's in the Hyperion Theater now, I'm not sure if they've changed it a bunch. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm trying to hold that back.
God bless you.
I'm so sorry. How unprofessional of me. Anyway, they try to make it different than just like, here's the songs, we're singing them, or here's a recap of the movie, because they have, entertainment cast telling the story.
Yes, that's right.
And making it fun and funny. I do wonder if they're going to change it now that Frozen 2 has come out. I think
because now they have a whole new set of songs and all of that,
they
and
added
another storyline.
Songs from the Olaf short.
Oh, that's right, the
Whatever
Christmas
that
short.
was called. A Very Special Christmas with Olaf.
There is a
The
name
reason
for
for
it.
the season, I can't remember.
It's Olaf Likes Fruitcake.
So yeah, they did add that, but that's like holiday themed, so I'm not sure how long that will last, until January maybe, and maybe they'll add a new update to that.
We'll see. That's the thing about this, is when you add all of these animated films or content, there's a lot of things that they can change.
And honestly,
So we'll
that's been a big pet peeve of mine. I'm going off track now. Of character meet and greets. Is like, you'll go and meet Ariel and she's a mermaid, but when the movie ended, she was human and got married.
Yep. There's a lot of
and
time issues with
Rapunzel cut her hair off and it was short and brown, but now if you meet her, it's long
and blonde.
But it's long in the show, too.
So,
yeah. I think
who
they
knows?
explain it in the show, but I can't remember. I haven't watched that whole thing, but I thought I heard people talking about that.
Yep. I
Anyway,
guess they're just trying to please the most amount of people as they can,
I guess. I wonder what would happen if they kept it realistic. If people would get angry and revolt and say, I want
They'll storm the castle.
Rapunzel. I don't know.
I also do not know.
Anyway, back to MGM. Let's see. What else
Oh, we were talking about the Theater of the Stars. Is it in the stars or of the stars?
The Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah.
Theater? What else do you have to say about that?
Well, no, there is something. It didn't used to only be Beauty and the Beast show. That also was the one that had, that Dick Tracy Diamond Double Cross.
Oh, right. I never saw that, but Brian P. Wilson did a guest post. I'm not sure if it was on that or the Dick Tracy McDonald's game.
Probably the Diamond Double Cross. And probably he incorporated elements of that, as well as what they did on the tram tour as well. Because there was a lot of Dick Tracy. They were Batman had just come out the year right before in 1989, and Dick Tracy came out in 1990. It was supposed to be Disney's kind of follow-up to Batman. It's supposed to be just as big and just as great. It didn't do as well, but it was a fantastic film.
Weird.
Which had very interesting sets and costumes and makeup. So they had that show, the Dick Tracy Diamond Double Cross, and that was a fun show that they had.
And then Hollywood's Pretty Woman, which I have zero memory of. I was in Massachusetts.
I don't remember that either. I do remember they had a giant cast of characters, including the Muppets, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and...
Really? In that show? Wow,
yeah,
I'll have to look that up on YouTube.
It was
never
completely
knew it existed.
Strange show, because Pretty Woman was a hot movie that came out also right around that time, just right after the studios opened.
And then Beauty and the Beast, which is still there today.
Yeah, what was interesting about the Beauty and the Beast show is that actually premiered literally the same day as the movie premiered in theaters.
Spoilers.
No, well, I guess, yeah. I guess
mean,
back in 1991.
A tale as old as time, really. Everyone knows that.
Well, but Disney's version of that.
Yeah.
So I guess if you had gone to that, maybe you would have been spoiled. But I think everybody went to see that movie on opening weekend.
I think everyone knew how it ended also.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that was also used for Star Wars weekends special events sometimes.
As well as Star of the Day. Do you remember that?
I do.
When the park first opened, they literally had a star, some sort of celebrity, every single day that appeared there. They did a a
cavalcade.
They did a parade down Hollywood Boulevard. They did their hands in cement, like they do at the Chinese theater, and then they had like an interactive show at the theater there. It was like a Q&A show where they talked about their career, and then they took questions from the audience, and they guaranteed that they would have a star every day, and they did for golly, probably the first 10, 11 years of the park.
Wow, I missed a lot of stars of the day.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
I watched a video of Dustin Nguyen from 21 Jump Street.
Ooh.
And it was very awkward. There was someone that was the host of that, and I was like, hey, that's a famous guy now. I can't remember.
They were like way more famous.
Yeah.
It might have even been Wayne Brady, to be honest.
No, it wasn't Wayne Brady.
Yeah, he was still just starting out in the
You're gonna have
anatomical
to Google
players
that
at that point.
Well,
but
'cause that's gonna eat
I'm
my
wondering if
brain.
it was the guy who co-did the win place, the win loser draw show.
No, it wasn't that.
Okay, never
He
mind.
was a young guy that now is more famous than he was at the time.
Okay.
And he was just working for Disney doing like their announcing or something.
Okay. Well,
but anyway,
we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the other point I wanted to make about that theater was when they then later created Sunset Boulevard, which did not exist when the park opened. They had to close down that theater because it was essentially right there at where the beginning of that street was. And because they were going to essentially create Sunset Boulevard that led all the way to Tower of Terror and then later Rock and Roller Coaster, they had to move that theater. And they did that.
Yes.
And they put it on wheels and just kind of moved it back.
Weird. Yeah, I remember when it was in its original location. And then I have been there since, of course, but not to watch Beauty and the Beast.
I was just kidding about the wheels part.
I figured.
But they did move a lot of the existing structure and seats and things.
And then after Star Wars Weekends ended, they did do a brief run of the music of Pixar
that's
live,
right.
which was lovely. And I wish
I
that they would
that.
do more of those, because while I did enjoy what we saw, they missed a lot. Like there was no Ratatouille music.
Yeah, they really only just used
and other ones that I forget.
a handful of films, but they had a full symphonic orchestra, and they essentially played the Pixar music to the films of That was fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good.
I forgot about that.
I shed a tear or two, probably. Good music, and Pixar always does that.
That's right. So where shall we go next?
Well, let's see. We could talk about parades.
I was going to say, the studios had a fine selection of parades for a small while.
I do have a lot of photos, because this was right when I moved down in 95. And that's when the Toy Story parade premiered. But before that, it was Aladdin, which I did see.
Aladdin parade was phenomenal with the giant
epic.
genie and the camels and the whole. I mean, if you remember the whole Prince Ali section of that movie, it's
it was
essentially
pretty much that brought to life.
Yeah, with the giant elephant,
and
Abu when he was an elephant.
Similar to Magic Kingdom, I mean, Hollywood Studios really did lend itself to a parade.
Oh yeah.
You had the Great Movie Ride courtyard area, and then Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, went up Hollywood Boulevard, and then right in front of Superstar Television, a Monster Sound Show, and then over to our Star Tours.
It would be. I mean, I know they were still doing them. They had the Pixar and Pals, but those weren't as fun as the original.
Well, yeah, it kind of evolved into that. But I mean, from Aladdin, that they then transitioned to the Toy Story parade.
Well, before it was Meet the Dinosaurs, the first one.
Oh my gosh, that was, I think, not a huge parade. I don't remember that one too well.
It was just meeting the dinosaurs. That's all you had to do.
Okay. But I
don't think I ever saw that
Aladdin
parade.
was the first giant one with giant floats and cars and things like that.
The dinosaurs were very big when the park opened.
They were. I never watched that TV show.
I watched it every week. In fact, there's a VCR tape somewhere in this house with a dinosaurs episode on it.
Yay.
I loved the baby dinosaur.
Baby dinosaur, of course.
That would say, "Not the mama." It was kind of, an adult's version of Elmo as far as his voice went.
Okay.
And you could see the baby dinosaur in the streets of America, they would like put him in a different window.
Yeah, and I
every
remember
year
whenever we had
during the Osborne lights.
Osborne Festival of Dancing Lights, a lot of people like to try to spot him in the window there.
Yeah, it was just like finding the purple cat. But he lives in that props warehouse,
That's right.
the prop shop,
Mm-hmm.
which if you do a special event of some sort, like if you were ever to plan a special event, that is one of the venues you can get. And they have...
Could get. That's gone.
Oh, it's gone? That's
yeah.
right.
All of that stuff is gone now.
I
They
forgot
kinda-
about that.
Yeah.
So is that like... Well, never mind. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, you could... I forget, like I said in the first episode, that stuff doesn't exist until I go there and it's not there. But that was a fun place because they had Lion King puppets from the Legend of the Lion King show that was where PhilharMagic is now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they had the baby dinosaur there who was, kind of falling apart, but you could still see that he was in mostly one piece. And lots of other weird little props from
Tons of props.
the years at MGM Studios into Hollywood Studios.
That's right.
But they must exist somewhere now in a warehouse.
But anyway.
After the
so
Aladdin
they had
parade
Aladdin,
was
then
Toy
the
Story.
Toy Story parade, right?
And that was fun because, like I said, that's when I moved down here and we would see it a lot. And that had the Strange Things song.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is one of the most underrated songs.
Jimmy.
Yeah, it was almost like the theme song of the parade, even though Friend Like Me is, or whatever. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Aladdin, You Ain't Never Had a Friend Like Me.
Oh.
You've Got a Friend in Me.
You've got a friend.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
and
old.
there's that, and I will go sailing no more.
Well, that wasn't in the parade. That was kind of a
because that was
depressing
a
one.
downer. But yeah, they had that song, and of course Woody and Buzz and all of the crazy Toy Story characters,
Which
which
is
we now
weird
have come to love.
That Toy Story parade, in my opinion, maybe I just had lower standards back then, was really fun and exciting. But I have like no interest in the Pixar pals and the Block Party Bash ones that they did. Sorry, but
that's okay.
After Toy Story was Hercules.
I love this parade. That was a lot of fun.
I think I only saw this maybe once because it was when I left. I wasn't working at Disney anymore. I was working as a real travel agent in a real travel agency.
Oh.
So I didn't go to the parks as much, maybe. I don't know, but I didn't see it that often.
But I just remember, everyone wearing their great Greek gear and the Zero to Hero and all of that.
It's one of my favorite
Hercules.
movies.
Yeah,
So
that was a fun parade.
that needs to be more represented in the parks as well.
But I would say that my favorite parade was the Mulan parade that happened after that. Do you remember that one at all?
I feel like I must have seen it once, but I can't remember. But that had like the cannons in it, right? That was fun.
It had that as well as the Emperor in a giant robe, as well as dragons and a lot of that kind of thing.
Maybe they'll bring that back with the live action Mulan.
That would be fantastic.
Coming soon.
And then they also had
Revamp
the I don't know if you remember the villain.
Yes, I do.
Of him all wrapped up at the end.
I've seen him at various, whatever they call those DVC, like Moonlight Madness things.
Yeah.
Moonlight Magic. I don't know.
Oh, you mean
or not
as
DVC.
a walk-around character?
Yeah, he's always at those things where like you don't
He's
see
creepy.
He's gigantic. He's
Yes,
so
he
big.
is a very big dude.
Crazy. And then after that was the Stars and Motor Cars parade.
That's right.
which-
This premiered when they did the 100 Years
Yeah.
of Magic, where they made sure to have at least a show or an attraction at each of the four parks. Actually, I think there was a new parade at each of the
that's
four
right.
parks
Wow.
that year, and this was that parade for the studios.
What was in Epcot?
I think that's when they changed it from Tapestry of
To
Nations.
Tapestry of Dreams.
No, Tapestry of Dreams to Tapestry of Nations. Or is it the other way
I
around?
think it's the other way around.
The other way around.
Well, that's a different show.
Yes, it is.
I do remember seeing like the giant cars.
But they had so many of them.
yeah.
And there was like a Muppets car and a Star Wars,
was
the
fun.
Land Speeder car.
And I think
And
when they did I'd have to look at photos or video, but when they did the 30th celebration this past May, they had that kind of thing where there would be a car with
Yeah.
Muppets
Well,
and the car
the
with
cars physically still exist. and
Indiana
they had
Jones
those.
and all that stuff. So
Oh, that's right.
that's fun.
But yeah, they had a lot of the characters. They had, a Toy Story car
So-
as well, and a Winnie the Pooh, I think,
Winnie the Pooh. That's crazy.
and Tigger too.
Was that the same time that the hat was added then?
I believe so. Yeah, 2001.
I do
That's
remember
right, the hat.
they
Yikes.
had those pins
Yep.
that lit up or
Yep.
did something interactive when you
Yep.
were in the park, and
That's
then they were
right.
supposed to do things during that parade, weren't they?
Yeah, I think it was kind of the
I have those
precursor to
somewhere.
the
I'm sure
the
you do.
ears that.
Yeah.
But
I never wore them or did anything because I was like, I'm collecting these. And so, yeah, I'm sure you have them.
I
as
do
well.
have them. Yes.
There was a lot of stuff for that celebration. I
There
wonder
really
if
was,
they're
yeah.
going to do something on that scale. I don't know that they can do that sort of thing anymore. There's just so many people that come here now.
There are a lot of people.
For the
a lot of
50th,
cast
I
members
don't
and a lot
know.
of people. So who knows?
Crazy. So, yeah, they added that darn hat and
Yes.
made it a
very
store.
controversial hat because
Some people love the hat.
it was a big old thing and it blocked the view of the Chinese theater,
Chinese theater.
which was the icon of the park. That and the Eiffel Tower, which we'll also touch on a little bit later.
Yes. Yeah, so, I mean, most people, I think, maybe Christian's age and a little older, liked the hat because it was a fun photo op.
It
You
was
could
a fun thing. It
pretend you were wearing the hat. You
it
could point
had
to the hat.
big stars and a moon on it, and
It
it was
lit up at
blue.
night. But
and
for those of us that were
yeah.
there from day one, it was blocking the view.
I mean, you could still see it. Just go around the.
Yeah, but you
just
couldn't
around
get
the way.
those cool.
No, you could not.
Which you still can't when they have the stage out
Yeah,
now,
and
even
that
though the
kind of
hat is
infuriates
gone.
me.
Which is kind of weird that the way they took the hat down and the way they're doing the Communicore in Epcot right now is so sad to me.
God,
Just
we won't
like-
even talk about how they got rid of Horizons.
Yeah,
then, because
the same-
that was like
The same
worst.
vein. Like, build a giant wall. You're Disney. You can cover up the scary
Yeah.
things you're doing that are destroying dreams, but whatever. That's another
And
episode
creating
as
nightmares.
Well. So what else besides
Well,
the hat?
we're touching on the last couple of parades. It was the Pixar and Pals,
Oh yeah, well,
and then the
I said that
Block
already.
Party Bash. I just want to say one thing about the Block Party Bash, is that there was a lot of activity. That was a very active
I
parade.
recently watched a video of that.
And I do remember, actually, I liked going to that show because at the end they would spew out a whole bunch of the little Nerf balls, and I collected those because I had cats and they liked to play with those. So I actually have around here probably about 20 of those Nerf balls that are all around that the cats still play with even to this very day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There was one on the floor I found. But
What else?
those parades are shadows of their former.
They are. But anyway,
predecessors.
so I guess when that parade ended, that's pretty much the end of the parades. They still did the for the Star Wars weekends, they had the parade of those characters and whoever was there for those, but they pretty much now do not have a daily parade.
Wow, I didn't realize how long ago that parade ended. The Pixar Pals ended in
Yeah.
2013.
Ooh.
There was a Frozen Royal Welcome ceremony, which was just for the summer
Yeah.
in 2014 and 2015.
Okay.
And then a 25th anniversary parade, which I also have no memory of, in 2014. What were we
I mean,
doing in 2014 that we
I
don't
don't
remember that?
But I also remember they had the American Idol parade at the opening for that with all of the American Idol stars.
Yes.
I mean, that was a one-time
Did you
thing.
need to say anything else about American Idol? I kind of cut you off on that. yes.
Just no. It was. I said that it was.
It was a thing
A little
to go
bit more
to.
intriguing than I thought it would be, just to see the competition aspect. Plus, they made it a pretty good show. And then the end show where they had the 7 various winners of the 7 earlier shows all compete to have a final winner to get the golden ticket. That was a fun show too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't need to say more about that.
One thing really quick, we didn't
Please.
mention when we were over in the Laugh Factory area or whatever that was called, and the Splash
Oh,
Fountain.
yeah.
What was the name of that restaurant that was over there? Soundstage?
Oh, yeah.
No.
No. Golly.
It's not Backlot Express, but it's some sort
It's
of...
something like that. Oh, my gosh.
I'm going to have to look it up.
It's the one that had a lot of red with yellow text, which actually then made me remember the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
That's what I was getting
adventure
to.
set.
Yes. But I got
because
sidetracked with
the
this
thing
restaurant.
about that thing was fun when it opened, but it got old quick, and it never, not one time, was it updated for any more current movie.
No.
So the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids came out in 1989, the same year as the park, and it lasted all the way through 2014. Something like that.
so I'm
that
sure-
was like 25 years of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids adventure set.
Most of the kids playing in it probably had never seen the movie or
certainly
had
not.
any idea what it was. But I mean, it was fun on its own.
I like to be able to stick my face in a dog's nose and have him sneeze on me. That was fun. And then crawl through caves and things like that.
And slide down a roll of film?
Yeah,
What's
because we
that?
were shrunk to the size
I
of
know,
an
I'm
ant.
just saying, like, film doesn't exist anymore. I'm going to try to look up that restaurant so you can...
If I knew how to look stuff up while we were doing a show, I would do it. As soon as you say it, I will say, oh yeah, that's what it was called. And I'm sure there are people screaming into their televisions.
Just
and
Backlot
iPods.
Express. That's all
that's
it was.
Yeah, Backlot Express.
We were overthinking it.
We were.
No, Backlot Express. That's the
No,
one
that's
over...
I always get these mixed up.
Wasn't it the studio catering company?
It was
Yes,
the studio.
thank you, Christian. Where were you 5 minutes ago when we were rambling?
I've still been trying to look up who was the guy.
We'll get
Oh
to
my
that
God.
later.
Look
Anyway.
up the Dustin Nguyen Day. That's when he was there.
I
Okay.
have not been able to find it.
Oh,
I don't
weird.
know what?
Maybe I got that wrong and it wasn't Dustin Nguyen.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, well.
Anywho.
Studio Catering Company. I always enjoyed that because even though it was not air conditioned, it was in a nice covered area and you could just kind of chill there and be in between places. So yeah, I miss that little spot also. And of course, the Coke bottle that sprayed mist at you was always fun.
I forgot about the giant Coke bottle. That's
the
right.
crashed tram next to the Backlot tour.
Wow.
Fun little gags that are no more.
The thing I miss that nobody ever could really get close to was the Earful Tower.
Yes. Well, you could get close to it, but...
And I often did. But you were wearing a lovely shirt from the Earful Tower.
I'm not usually a fan of buying the shirts that Disney puts out where they're like, we're tearing this down, buy a t-shirt so you can remember it. Because I think that's kind of crappy of them. Sorry, Disney, but...
The thing about that particular tower, first off, whenever we were on the tram ride and it passed by the Earful Tower, they always called it the award-winning Earful Tower. And I would, at the end of every single ride, I would go to the tram operator and I would say, hey, you described that as award-winning. What award did it win? And they never could answer that question.
That sounds like a very Scott Otis thing.
They
to
always
ask.
were able to say what the hat size was, which was some crazy giant number and 3/4. But they could never tell me what award it won. But unlike the one at the studios lot in California, it did not hold water. Or was it backwards? One of them held water and one did not.
No, this one never did. I don't
Okay,
think
that's
did
right.
it?
And occasionally
The
they
other one was
put
actually
put things on top of it like a Santa hat. And for some reason they put Horace Grant goggles because the Orlando Magic was hot around the 1995 time.
I guess I vaguely remember that.
And things like that. Very weird things. But anyway, the other thing about the Earful Tower is a lot of people thought it was earful, meaning EARFUL, because it was an ear full of things. But no, it was spelled earful as in the Eiffel Tower, where they just changed the EI to EAR.
Correct.
So it is spelled EARFFEL after Gustav Eiffel. The guy who built the Eiffel Tower.
The icon has been frequently misspelled as Eiffel Tower. It's
That's
right on
right.
the Wikipedia page.
I just
was
had
seeing
to
if
go
they had the
on the
award for that, but they don't.
record is saying that's how it was.
It still exists in.
I found the video.
Okay, in France or no? In
Oh yeah,
the studios there.
It's at the park that nobody goes to, the Studios Park.
They're redoing it. Give it a chance.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
yes.
think actually that tram tour just closed in Paris for the new land that they're doing there.
Yeah,
Read that where-
it's been closed for a spell.
Maybe they're going to take that down then.
Yeah, that tram ride, even when I was there in the year 2012, was a shell of what it used to be. That tram ride in the Paris version of the Studio Park was long overdue to being.
You can see more about that on the
But
Imagineering
that's
story.
a whole other show when we get there. That's right, you can see it there. Do you remember the, not world's largest, but the largest in Disney World's largest hidden Mickey?
I do, yes. I'm glad you brought this up.
That I loved.
That was always a fun thing. And if you worked at the parks and you had the little radios back in the day, well, I guess they still have radios. They're just
They do.
have little earpieces now.
They do.
They would say, "Meet me at the ear," because when you would come in, I mean, this is not the proper map. You had a whole week to find a real map that you didn't look for.
Yeah, the Echo Lake. The
Is
existing
one ear.
Echo Lake is one of the ears. The other ear was kind of in a building, but on the top of the building, they actually had it painted so that you could, if you were in a helicopter, could see that. The nose was a planter, and his eyes, which actually had the pie eyes, was a different color of the pavement. They had different colors for his eyes and his smile and all that. So it was a really fantastic hidden Mickey that was just a giant thing that was basically right in front of the Great Movie Ride.
Yeah, which when they put the giant hat in,
That
it messed up.
It completely ruined it.
The giant Mickey.
But that also then reminds me of what they used to do in front of the Great Movie Ride there. Back in 1991, when there was a great film that was released in 1991, The Rocketeer.
Oh my gosh, this is all you.
This is all because I was, I basically went to the park pretty much every night, and they actually had one of those flying packs, which were, there were a couple of them in existence, and there's actually one that you can see in one of the old Disneyland the old Disneyland, kind of like the throwback when Walt was going to Tomorrowland. They actually showed a guy in a jetpack, and if you look at all the people that are watching it, they're all plugging their ears because it was so loud.
Oh wow!
It was the same way here at the studios. They actually had the Rocketeer, a guy dressed up as the Rocketeer, and he had the actual rocket pack, and he would take flight, and he would go up and around, basically even higher than the Great Movie Ride, and kind of swing around and then land. But it was so loud. But that was the coolest thing. But then in addition to that, he would kind of go back, and then the Rocketeer would come back and then take photos before the Sorcerer in the Sky show happened. I did a weird thing. I was with my friends at the time, and I was kind of the ham of the group. And if you had your photo taken with the Rocketeer, then there was a good chance that I was in that photo doing the thumbs up signal that the Rocketeer would also do, because that was just a weird thing that I did. Kind of often got on the other side of where the Rocketeer was and just kind of posed because I was a silly ham.
You were a silly ham. I have a photo of you with your pals and the Rocketeer, which I will give to Christian to add in. You can watch this on YouTube if you're not already and see that.
But that was just a really cool thing. That it was kind of like a pre-show to the fireworks show that they had there, and where they actually had the Rocketeer fly.
Ah, yes.
And that was just awesome. But then I should also mention that fireworks show, the Sorcery in the Sky fireworks, narrated by legendary actor Vincent Price. Welcome to Sorcery in the Sky.
Which made sense
Lights,
because, he
camera,
is Hollywood.
Action.
Sorry, I cut you off in your
No, it's okay.
dramatic.
That's how he sounded for that. And they had that was just a really cool fireworks show where they used the kind of the music from great Hollywood films. And the one cool thing about that was they actually started with black and white films, and at that time all of the fireworks were white, black and white. And they didn't go to color fireworks until color films started. But it was
I never made that connection back then.
Well, since most movies are color, I think they actually used The Wizard of Oz, that transition scene from when they went to the.
I'm going to have to watch a video because I've seen it, but I don't really remember much of it. So
it was just a fun show.
It was canceled in 1998, but they also had the inflatable.
That's right. At the
Sorcerer Mickey.
At the end, a giant, kind of I think like a cold air balloon of the Sorcerer Mickey would come out, and kind of like the character in Fantasmic where sparks would fly out of his finger. They had that from the balloon there too, and that was just kind of a cool ending to that show. That's right.
And then they created Fantasmic in 98 and made everyone go over. Did they stop the fireworks just because they wanted people to go to Fantasmic, or
there was I want to say that there was even a spell where they did have both. I could be wrong about that. But I think the Fantasmic became their essential nighttime show.
Interesting.
But I mean, if you think about it now, they still do fireworks there.
They do, over the years,
Fantasmic.
they had, they would do them for, like, 4th of July and New Year's. They would always do, like, fun displays, but they never did a themed fireworks show until they added, like, the galactic things would do and the
done Star
projection
Wars
stuff.
Including the projections, but then now they're also doing, like, kind of the Disney films and all of that.
The Wonderful World of Animation.
That's right. But then they're still doing Fantasmic, so you can do 2 nighttime shows at that park.
Disney Movie Magic was the precursor to the one they just started in May of this year. And I really enjoyed that one because it was live action only. But now they're adding in the animation, which is fine. It's still a fun show. It's weird to me that they had to basically build structures next to the Great Movie Ride to have more projection things, because they're just kind of like eyesores in the daytime.
Giant blocks.
What are you gonna do? It's worth it at night, I guess, to see the fun things. And then they do fireworks shows themed to that, and they do Star Wars: A Galactic Spectacular sometimes as well. I guess they do Frozen Fireworks Spectacular, or they did until 2015.
Fun.
Yeah. So anyway, lots of nighttime options now, which the bad thing that this Galaxy's Edge has for it versus Disneyland is Disneyland, you can get really cool photos of like the Millennium Falcon with fireworks behind it because of the way it's faced. But for us, you can't really get those cool shots.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, well.
That's okay. There are a lot of changes coming to the park, and
there are
with these Star Wars.
I just have one more story.
Please.
A memory of mine, which I mentioned briefly in the first episode, and that is I happened to be there at exactly the same time when Princess Diana came to visit Walt Disney World.
You promised this story.
In 1993. And she stayed at the Grand Floridian. She had Prince William and Prince Harry with her.
They were probably wee tots at the time.
I don't know how old they were. They were small children at the time, but, old enough to enjoy Disney World.
Yeah, I remember she did like to come to the parks and bring her
and
children.
she really didn't have a huge entourage of like security people with her back then.
It's crazy to think about who she was.
We kept bumping into her, my mother and I, wherever we went. It was like Princess Diana was there, and it was like kind of crazy after a while. But one of the places that we saw her was in the Backlot Express. And I have photos of her just walking by one of the, how they have like weird like cages with like props and stuff in them. And then I actually went to the bathroom at the same time as her. It's crazy. I don't have any memories of that. But I remember thinking, like, why didn't they like clear the bathroom out? Like, this is a princess. But they didn't do that. It was weird.
I guess she just wanted to be one of us. She was the people's princess.
This is true. And she was just in shorts and a t-shirt. You know, she looked very cool, like Banana Republic-esque type clothes. And we also saw her over at Mickey's Starland. And I have photos of her sitting there with the boys watching that show that they had in the tents, like the judges show or whatever. So those were fun memories of mine from back in
Very cool.
Hollywood Studios or Disney MGM Studios.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a fun place to go. Like I said, I had that connection with my dad there, and, you know, there was a lot of weird family memories over the year, which I won't get into in this podcast, but that was always like a place where I remembered him, and the great movie ride at the end. He was like a big Barbra Streisand fan as well, and, you know, when in the montage she would say, "Hello, gorgeous." It was good times. So I think we didn't touch on the great movie ride as much as we could have.
Oh, we could have gone forever.
I think that was for my own sanity, because I would probably be a blubbering mess remembering things.
That was a great ride.
It was a good ride. As with all things, you know, when Disney decides to change, you just kind of have to go with the flow and hope that future iterations of whatever they've decided to do makes as many wonderful memories as you had in the past.
That's right. And they're evolving and adding new things, so it'll be exciting to enjoy those.
Our children's memories will be of Galaxy's Edge.
Pretty much.
Maybe someday they'll close that down.
Probably not.
That's going to be weird to think about. 50 years of Galaxy's Edge. Anyway.
I think we've pretty much covered all of the fun things that we miss about the original Disney MGM Studios.
Yes.
We had a good time
there. Share with us your favorite memories.
Oh, yes, please.
We got a few comments here and there, and one of them was talking about the Premiere Theater, so we covered that for you,
Yeah, we
David.
didn't cover it in the first episode, but now we did this time.
Yes. So share with us, comment on any of the social media platforms. If you haven't already, please like this podcast or video if you're watching it. Subscribe, share, tell your friends.
Yes, please.
Give us a thumbs up. Rate us on Apple Podcasts.
That's right.
Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yep. And you always got the fun YouTube video, which is, I think, I encourage you to watch in addition to listen. And then also check out ZannaLand.com for fun stories.
Yes.
And things
As
like
mentioned before, I have a few memories of the studios on there. So I'll link to those.
We'll have to link to, because you've also had some nice long...
I linked to them on the last episode, so thanks for reading. All right, so that's going to do it for us for this episode of Up the Waterfall, and we thank you for listening.
That's right. Until next time.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Well, that's only part of it. I got a big climatic scene.
But how could you top it?
Well, we set the place on fire, and we have our audience trapped down in this flaming city.
And how can they get out then?
Well, now you got into this mess by going down a waterfall. Now, how would you suppose we get them out of there?
By going up the waterfall?
That's right. Anything's possible in Disneyland.